I live in Los Angeles, California, and it makes my blood boil when I see things like this from Mike Johnson.
Are you open to providing aid to California without any conditions at all?
I think we've got to have a serious conversation about that. Obviously, there's been water resource mismanagement, forest management mistakes, all sorts of problems. And it does come down to leadership, and it appears to us that state and local leaders were derelict in their duty in many respects. So that's something that has to be factored in. I think there should probably be conditions on that aid. That's my personal view. We'll see what the consensus is. I haven't had a chance to socialize that with any of the members over the weekend because we've all been very busy, but it'll be part of the discussion for sure.
As you know, the wildfires surrounding Los Angeles have been absolutely devastating. We're now a week past when they started to break out, and the fires in Palisades and Altadena are still burning. For days, we smelled smoke. Our house, our cars, our yard was covered in ash. The toxic fumes from that smoke have been lingering in the air for a week now. We don't even know what the long-term health consequences are, but Republicans know for sure there's going to be strings attached to any aid coming to California. What kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of world do they want to create where victims of a natural disaster are subject to partisan whims? And it's not Mike Johnson, it's other Republicans as well.
Let's not forget the other side of this equation. There's $36 trillion in debt that every American is paying $100,000 into. We can't just keep running up the government credit card here. And one of the things that I'll push back on is we've got to be able to grow our economy. We do that with tax cuts, but we also have to spend responsibly here. And so just like aid to California, we will certainly help those thousands of homes and families who have been devastated, but we also expect you to change bad behavior. We should look at the same for these blue states who have run away with a broken tax policy. We want to be able to help out our colleagues in New York, California, New Jersey, but we also want those governors need to change their tune now.
What do you mean by changing bad behavior? Do you know how this started? We're seeing a lot of Republicans throw around their buzzwords like DEI and woke when it comes to these fires, but none of them can really pinpoint how they started or how their pet causes affect the response. It's important that people don't let partisanship get in the way here, because you should never allow that to influence how you reach out and try to help people in your community.
I've been in Congress a long time approving aid after disasters. I never once even considered, is this hurricane hitting a red state or a blue state? What about this flood? What about this fire? It has never mattered to me. For sure. We're all in this together. It's the United States of America. We need the incoming president to view it that way. We're ready to work with the president to make sure that we have no gap, no air between us when it comes to making sure that we help victims get back on their feet and help California rebuild.
Let's say you're at the grocery store and an old lady next to you is struggling to get her groceries into her car. Are you going to ask her what her political beliefs are before you help her? No, of course not, because you're a decent person. So why, when you have people losing their homes, are you worried about who they voted for? And really, you can see the animus that Republicans have toward anybody who's not inside the MAGA cult here on full display. That if you're not in the cult with them, damn you to hell. And it's really unhealthy and toxic behavior for our country. Part of it also is that there is a fundamental misunderstanding about how these fires started and the impediments to addressing them when they broke out.
We've been hearing about fires in California for years.
In positions of power, like the Orange County Fire Chief, the LA County Fire Chief, the head of FEMA, even Elon Musk, who went to a briefing and heard from a fire command, who have all said that this wasn't about a lack of preparedness, that this was because it was unprecedented. If you have 100 miles per hour winds, so much so that the choppers can't fly for 27 hours, which was a crucial element of this, that it was too windy to be able to do it, then you can't stand there and blame them like this. I mean, these quotes are crazy, saying, firefighters have never seen these kinds of winds. The fires were, quote, unstoppable. Mother Nature owned us.
There are winds, and they're called the Santa Ana winds. They reached as high as 100 miles per hour last week. For all we know, that could have downed a power line and caused a fire. Once that fire starts to spread, because this is a drought-stricken area thanks to climate change, those winds made it impossible for helicopters and planes to get above these fires in the hills and start to extinguish them. That's typically how fires are fought here. But you can't have a helicopter just hovering in place in 100-mile-an-hour wind. So firefighters responded as best they could as they waited for the winds to subside. Unfortunately, those winds fanned the flames and carried embers elsewhere. Republicans and especially Fox pundits have been trying to pretend like this is an issue of preparedness. Just look to the fire chief. The fire chief in LA will tell you it wasn't an issue of preparedness. They are ready. They're always ready. This is something they deal with often. They were impeded by the wind.
Meltgate again, too.
There's nothing fake about the smell. I actually brought the lawsuit in last week. Maybe you already forgot, Jessica. And are you going to come on TV and say that California was well prepared and couldn't have done anything better? And this fire, no one could have put it out? Are you really going to tell people watching right now in California that Democrats, the liberals, all the Hollywood stars that are livid at Bass and Newsom, that everything was perfect and they got this thing right? Jessica, this is such a disaster.
Will probably be recalled, but I am going to come on and read what the head of FEMA had to say, or the LA County fire chief.
And that wind is something I've never experienced before. I have never been near a tornado. Maybe some of you have, but I stepped outside that night and it felt like what I imagine a tornado would feel like. And for comic relief, the wind picked up my welcome mat and hit me in the face. That hurt for a few days, but I can't imagine the pain that someone might feel if they actually lost their home. And that's who needs to be centered here, but Republicans are unwilling to do that.
She said the meteorologists let them know different information, but the leadership didn't let them know how bad this was going to be. And she was wondering why there wasn't more notice given so they could start the evacuation process.
Well, I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that the mayor of Los Angeles is in Africa for the inauguration of the president of Ghana.
But you also have to understand this is not a hurricane where you have days in advance and you know exactly where that hurricane is going to make impact. We had, 24 to 48 hours of notice. And so that's not a lot of notice for people. And to actually forecast where potential winds could go, where somebody could potentially set a fire, that's impossible.
They also want to point the finger at Mayor Karen Bass. And I think when it comes to the budget cuts for the fire department, by all means, but her going on a pre-planned trip and this developing while she was away isn't really in her control. But the thing is, they see a black female mayor of a big city, they see a disaster, and they're going out there to push their DEI nonsense. This isn't about their care or purported care for the residents of Los Angeles who are losing their homes. If it was, they wouldn't be conditioning aid. And it's absolutely critical that we all recognize that.